Hi, and welcome to the Spawdcast. My name's Carrie and I'm your host and your pet's life coach. Today we're going to be talking about feline cystitis. It's a common condition that we find in our cats, but it's one that we think that we can help you with. So today I brought on the show a couple of experts and also a guest co-host who actually has a kitty who's been suffering this for a very long time. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to my guest co-host today, Lisa Daniels. Hi, Lisa. How are you?
Hi, I'm awesome.
Great. So Lisa has a cat named Aria, and Aria has been suffering for a very long time with having blood in her urine. And so a lot of times people instantly think that's something very, very serious, but the cats are acting normal. So Lisa, tell us a little bit about what the symptoms were, how you got to this diagnosis, and what happened.
Well, so at first, the first time that it happened, of course, I thought it was a urinary tract infection because I've seen the urgency to the cat litter many times over and over again. She'd get out, she'd go back in. And so I just took her straight to the vet and said, I need antibiotics. I know this. I know what this looks like. Yeah. And they complied. They gave me the antibiotics.
How old was she?
She was about a year and a half.
Okay.
Yeah. And so they complied. They gave them to me, and
the antibiotics.
Right, and it went away after about 5 days.
Just out of curiosity, did they run a culture to see if there was a bacteria?
They couldn't because she didn't have any urine in her bladder.
And they gave you antibiotics.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it went away after about 5 days, and I was like, great, it worked, and it came back about 3 days later. So this time, because I didn't want it, she doesn't like the vet, so I didn't want to leave her at the vet. What they suggested is leave her here all day so her bladder can fill up so we can take the culture.
Right.
And I didn't want to do that, and like I said, they complied. So then when it came back a couple days after it had gone away, I complied and let them keep her for the day. And so they were able to get a urine sample, and they said she does not have a bacteria infection. But they, of course, had already started the antibiotics at that point. And so at that point, they gave her a anti-inflammatory, too, to try to help the bladder come down or whatever. And so it went away after a few days, and it came back again. So we are on the third week in a row of that happening.
And each time there was blood in her urine?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And yeah, and after the 3 times it happened, they finally were like, you know what, it's probably a mental thing. She's probably got something stressing her out. And I thought they were crazy because she's a happy, fun cat. And so they prescribed her the anti-anxiety medicine at that point.
Okay. So, and we're still having episodes, right?
It's me too. I go through it, chasing her around for 5 days, trying to protect my belongings. But she's had it, she had it, we moved 2 months ago.
Okay, so that's going to
And she had it twice, and then that was a month ago that she had her last one, and then she's got it again this week, so.
Okay. All right, well, this is why I brought you on the show, because we're going to go through this together, and I wanted to bring on some kitty experts for you guys to listen to. And I know a lot of times I bring on veterinarians and we talk through it, but I wanted to bring on some people who have created a company that helps with herbs and things that can get through, who know a lot about kitties. So I am so very, very excited to introduce you guys the 2 crazy cat ladies, which we're going to talk about why they're called that in a minute. But before we do, I would like you all to meet Andrea and Jae. Hi, how are you guys?
We're doing so well.
Good.
Yes. Thank you for having us.
We just got to see your kitty. Who is that again?
That's Zorro, our Black Panther.
Yeah. And how many cats do you guys have?
A total of 6 right now.
So you're officially crazy cat ladies.
What is the number? What makes it a crazy cat lady?
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. What is the number? Do you guys know what the number is to be a crazy cat lady?
No, but I will tell you, we have some followers with 43 cats. Like we have one follower with 43 cats and some with like 30 plus. So we don't actually feel like
I don't think it's a numerical qualifier. I think it's a mindset.
There you go.
No?
Yeah. So that's one of the interesting things, right? Like I love that you guys came out and are like, look, it's okay to be a crazy cat lady. It's okay. Because forever the crazy cat lady was the, woman in her pajamas and never showering, right? You guys have been able to help cat ladies. How did you guys come up with the name? Or was it just you were knew you were?
Well, we really wanted to kind of change the stereotype. That was a big part of the motivation for
the name.
For the name.
Yeah. And everybody always called us two crazy cat ladies prior because, you know, all of our friends have dogs, of course. And they're like, oh, well, the crazy cat ladies. So we just embraced it. We were like, okay, we're going to.
But initially, there is that negative connotation that goes along with it. You know, we're like, you're not crazy cat ladies. I mean, so we've got cats.
Yeah.
Right?
How does that make us weird?
But yeah, when we started the Two Crazy Cat Ladies, it was an intentional decision to be the Two Crazy Cat Ladies to kind of
debunk the myth.
Taking the edge off the stereotype.
Well, I think you guys have been successful in it, to be honest, because it is weird. Like you can have, 40 dogs and not be the crazy dog person, but if you have more than 2 cats, you're nuts. Like what is that? But
it's so true.
But the problem with that term, I think, is that it is actually limited the amount of health resources that are available to cats because people don't want to talk about, like we see a lot of people go to the dog parks and they talk about their dogs and they talk about their dog health and stuff, but you don't see people going, I got 9 cats and one of them has this, because there's that connotation. So I think you guys did a lot more than you think you did by coming up with that name and coming out. So I know I appreciate it.
Well, there's a huge community of, I mean, we honestly believe they're the best people on earth. This community that has come out is so empathetic, compassionate. It's really been incredible to see.
So many cat parents. So many cat parents that are like, oh, okay, somebody I can talk about my cats with. And so I feel like the community is growing and people are really starting to come out of the woodwork.
It's a good safe space for us.
Yeah. Because cats get a bad rep too, right? Like I will tell you, I have a cat right now and her name is Garage Kitty, and she does not give cats a good name. She lives in my garage. She's lived there for 14 years, and she will not come out. And I mean, I have tried everything. And so instead, I have all sorts of things built in the garage for her to climb on, and and I feed her a species-appropriate diet. But she won't even barely come to me when I feed her. And so I kind of she's just, I don't know what her. So there's probably something psychological. But my point to that is that's what people think cats are. Is aloof and they don't come out and they're not friendly. So when a person says, I love my cat, they're like, why? Doesn't it just hide in your bed and you feed it and spend a lot of money on it? And
or if you're lucky, it just looks good sitting on your couch, right? I mean, that's,
right? I think it's so important if we're going to get these cats healthy that we break that stereotype and understand that cats can be, I own a cat hotel, so I get to see so many different personalities of kitties that come in. And I can tell you, from a person who owns Garage Kitty, even I was like, wow, cats are, and prior to owning the cat hotel, I had worked for vets. So we only saw them when they were sick and trying to eat my face off because I'm putting a needle in their arm. But owning the cat hotel, I can tell you, I get to see all these personalities. So I'm excited. That's why I wanted to bring you on the show, because I think their health is being completely put aside for stereotypes, and we need to talk about it. So when did you guys start on this journey? So did you get kittens as a young child, but what started you on this journey? Did you have a sick cat?
Well, so, I mean, as far as like being cat parents, we kind of have
always come to us.
Yeah,
we've never been to a shelter. We never looked to adopt. It was always a cat that just showed up. And I'll confess that many of our kitties were cats that were like, well, we'll find this little one a good home. We're not keeping it. So
lots of foster fails.
Yeah, lots of foster. But we've always been animal lovers. I think confession is we both kind of considered ourselves dog people growing up.
Yeah.
Really?
And then when we got to be, college age and started accumulating cats inadvertently, that's when people started calling us crazy cat ladies.
Yeah.
And it just kind of went from there. But the passion really, I think, started when we started learning about pet nutrition in general.
Yeah. So we started in the pet nutrition industry back in 2005. And it was in the supplemental / alternative medicine world. And we learned a whole lot about dogs and dog health, and even some about horses and horse health. But we had cats. We had 5 at the time.
Yep.
And nobody had information for us when it came to our cats. It was like, oh, it's probably the same thing as dogs, but these things weren't happening with dogs that were happening with our cats.
Right.
So,
there was some peripheral education that we really absorbed, as it goes towards, like diet, that sort of thing. But
For sure.
But the max was really, well, we've got to find a good quality kibble for these kitties. And we would spend $75 on a bag of kibble.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
But when it was really Tiggy that Jay's soul kitty was diagnosed with feline leukemia. And that was a really scary time.
Yeah, we turned to our industry people, right? And we were like, what do we do? And they're like, never heard of it. I don't know. It sounds like cancer.
idea.
So what do you, so we ended up losing him. And in 2015, we branched off and said, you know what? We're going to be that resource we can't find. We're going to do everything we can to learn and teach other people what, what
to
we're
learn,
learning.
share, and grow.
Yeah, that's
and
our
we
motto.
really did, we call them mistakes, but nothing's a mistake if you learn from it,
Right.
I think.
Agreed.
We really went through a lot with our own cats, whether it was dental issues, finding a tooth. Like, whose tooth is this? That going
Rotted out.
right, that had rotted out. The urinary tract infections, obviously the feline leukemia, kidney disease. I mean, there were so many things, and it's like you go to the vet and this is what you do, and
It's
there
an
had to be
antibiotic or a
so much
steroid.
more, right? So we
Antibiotic
really
or steroid,
dived-
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's
those
what's
are the-
crazy. I
the two
had
big
3
ones.
cats for 17 years. 2, they're my boys. So they had 2 of them went to 17 and 1 lived to almost 19 years old. And I fed them the worst food ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they lived forever. So when I got Arya, I was like, you know what? Because I was young then. And when I got Arya, I was like, I'm going to feed her the best food ever. And so we did raw.
Yeah.
And like I said, that's when she would stop. She'd eat it. She loved it until she didn't. Of course, usually when you stock up.
Right. Just when the freezer's full.
Yeah. So she'd eat it forever, loved it, and then like I said, she'd just stop for 5 or 6 days
just
and just
stop.
wouldn't eat anything. And
Yeah.
but if you weren't the one feeding her, you would have no idea because she was running around, drinking, playing. Everything was just hunky dory. Yeah. So. This time around, I want to do right, and
Yeah.
I want to do, and that's what I really loved about a sign outside your door that said, "What does it say? That medicine is sick care,
Medicine is sick care,
food,
nutrition is
nutrition
healthcare.
is health care."
Yeah. Yeah, that's a
Loved
sign
that.
right outside of my
loved
store.
I love that.
Yeah, because it really it's 2 trains of thought, right? You can either treat your animals when they get sick, or you can keep them healthy by feeding them nutrition. And so, but nutrition looks different for everybody. What do your kitties eat?
We feed a raw diet as well to all of our cats. So
Okay.
yeah, and we feed variety. We're very big on, not always feeding the same proteins. They get a lot of novel proteins right now in the rotation is actually camel.
I had no idea.
Rabbit is their
I
favorite.
didn't know they had camel. Wow.
I know, right?
That's amazing.
So they eat very well. But this just goes to show, Lisa, that we're very adamant about the way that we feed our pets, but food isn't always everything. There's so much more when it comes to nutrition and preventative care when it comes to our cats, like stress, right? Or vaccines. And like there's so many other things, chemicals in the household that actually affect our cats that we didn't know and that we've just learned along the, over the past literally 5 years.
Right.
Right.
That
Chemicals like what?
contributes to our cats' overall health.
Wow. What kind of chemicals are you referring to?
So like candles, plugins, we were really, really big into Febreze plugins.
Yes,
and
the
they were-
aerosol spray.
Yeah.
Me too, once upon a time. Yeah. Making it smell nice. Yeah. Those chemicals our animals are super sensitive to. So we forget that their entire life is about smelling. That's their communication. And so when we burn a candle that smells nice to us, it could be triggering something in their brain that is saying something's off, something's wrong. Even fire. You light a candle, if there's fire in the house, to an animal, that means run. That could be sparking anxiety in your pet, but we don't think about that stuff. and how
Yeah, well, and
important.
there's usually like I'm really big, especially at this season, on the Yankee
Seasonal.
candles.
Yeah.
Right. Every year I would stock up. We'd spend way too much money and stock up on those, not knowing that they have paraffins in it and that it's actually toxic to our cats.
Yeah.
And I tried to justify it for a while. Well, we had that one cat with asthma, but I'm sure it's okay.
Yeah.
But then when you do the study, when you read the studies and when you see how these household
concentration.
chemicals are really, affecting them, it's
Yeah.
like we have to make that decision because before we see something wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to start like leading from what you're talking about. And when we're talking about anxiety, if an animal is not feeling right within the home, that's going to lead to anxiety, which could lead your pet to cystitis. So I'm going to ask you guys if you could just define what we're going to be talking about today. What do you guys know about cystitis? How do you define it for people?
Okay, so the medical field actually calls it feline idiopathic cystitis, and they call it idiopathic because they don't know where it comes from, right? Basically, anything that's an idiopathic disease is like we don't have the root cause of it. But the majority of these, especially when it comes to our cats, are linked directly to stress. Now, sometimes that's nutritional stress and sometimes that's environmental stress, but always some kind of stress within the body, which usually creates inflammation, sometimes in the bladder, sometimes in other areas of the body. But feline idiopathic cystitis, all the studies show that over, I think, 80% is directly related to stress.
Right. So I'm going to give a little example from my boarding facility because it helps me. A lot of times people think, and I know Lisa is probably fallen victim to this, that stress means your animal is acting stressed, meaning
Right.
pacing, not eating, maybe vomiting, maybe running the walls. I'm going to tell you from my experience from my boarding facility, that is not always the case. I have seen animals who seem to be okay, and then I'll see blood in their urine. And I know they're stressed. If you just think about it from a boarding standpoint, leaving the home, and even though there's a bunch of people around and all of that, can be stressful. And so I want to stress that, and I want to know if you guys agree with me, that stress doesn't always mean that your animal is showing signs of stress. Can you guys talk a little?
Absolutely.
Yeah, especially when it comes to our cats, right? Because our cats, they're predators, but they're also prey. So instinctively, they mask all pain, all stress, things like that. So they are, usually when you see a stressed out cat, I mean, every cat has a different personality, right? But when you see a cat and you're like, oh, wow, my cat is really stressed out, it's usually because they're super stressed out.
Right.
A bored cat is a stressed cat. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think Dr. Marcy Koski with Feline Behavior Solutions does a really great job of helping us understand that what we see as stress behavior or as anxiety is not how our cats see things at all.
Right.
So being able to look at it from their perspective, and I think understanding that basic mentality of never showing when they're stressed, when they're in pain, that sort of thing is really important because as we get to know our kitties, then we might be able to
Better tell.
what's going on.
Yeah.
And sometimes it'll be a couple of different things. It's not always going to be as, I'm using air quotes here, as easy as there being a physical thing that you see, like blood in their urine or like over grooming or something like that,
Right.
or just aggression. I think aggression is a misunderstood symptom of a number of different things.
Of stress.
Right.
Right. I know when we get kitties dropped off at the cat hotel, they've come over in a car, they're in a bag, all of these things are happening. And I'll take the kitty out and the kitty will be up on me. But what I'll notice, and the owner will notice, is that the cat is shedding more. She's like, wow, look at all this hair. So I want to point that out because I think that's a symptom that people don't realize is actually a symptom of stress. If you're all of a sudden your pet is shedding, and it can be other issues, but I really want to focus us on defining what stress could mean in your cat. That's one symptom that I have noticed, and people have told me as soon as they get the cat home, a couple days later, the shedding goes away, and so we have linked that to, but are there any that you guys have noticed that might be kind of something that you've noticed in your cats that we wouldn't necessarily think as stress from humans?
Yeah, so I mean, there are so many
purring.
signs. Sometimes purring.
Sometimes it's purring.
When we think that our cats
I've
purr
heard
just because
that,
they're happy.
but yeah,
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Understood.
Sometimes they'll purr when they're stressed because it's their internal way of soothing themselves.
Yeah.
So
That
those
makes
are some
sense.
like a strange one. We what was the other one I was just thinking of?
Sometimes they sleep in areas.
bored.
What?
So being bored. So
Yeah.
it's very interesting what cats, indoor cats especially, are labeled aloof, as you said, because they seem to lay around a lot
They don't want to
not
do anything.
and they don't want to play. So something else we learned from feline expert, behavior expert, was that a bored cat is a stressed cat
Yep.
because cats are not made to be bored and just lay around. Now, they do sleep a lot, but if they're sleeping all day long and they refuse to play, it's because they're stressed out. It's because they're not able to be the feline that they want to be.
Yeah, yeah. I've had that problem with Garage Kitty because she, I'm like, you can't just lay in this garage. Well, I don't know what to do for you. So now I have to go out there and I have to throw things over in the corner. So she'll be like, what's that? She won't really play with me. I've never been able to. I don't know. I mean, I've tried all sorts of things with her, but I have found ways to make her life, like if I open my garage door, the big garage door, it kind of makes her move around and go, what's that? And she gets kind of interested. And sometimes I can leave that garage door open and she'll watch the birds, and that's been helpful. So,
She still won't come out.
She still won't come out. She won't come out. I can't get her to, 14 years, I haven't given up. I've just had to alter ways to keep her life interesting, because she just doesn't want to kind of come over to what I want her to do. So I even thought about getting her another cat, but I'm fearful that that's going to make it even worse. I don't know. She'll stop eating, because right now she's the best eater. She'll eat really well, but when I'm not looking, only when I'm not looking, I'll find her bowl. But those are things that, I have to recognize. And I didn't realize how bad it was, because it was her choice to go into the garage and not come out. So I thought that's what she wants. That's where she's comfortable, until I started noticing, and you guys brought it up, she was over grooming herself. And that was a big key point. Her stomach was bald, but no signs of any kind of infection or anything wrong. And I thought, oh, great, here we go. She's over grooming, and I have to find a way to keep her from getting bored. So what are some of the ways you guys do that you would recommend that people can do to help keep their pets active, especially if you have...
Goodness, I just to go back just a quick second, follow up on that. I love the fact that you have this kitty hotel, because I think it's so incredible. You get those kitties at the most stressed, kind of like an apex of stress, right? They're outside of their territory. Territory is so important to kitties. Having their smell, that familiarity there is so incredible. So I love that you have this, that you're having this conversation. So even us cat parents can better understand when it's time to go to the vet, or when it's time for a boarding situation or something like that, to better prepare for those things. So,
and it's funny because the average, going back to the stereotype, the average outsider, I guess you'd say, thinks that cats are easy pets and dogs are more difficult, right? Because you have to take them out and walk them and things like that. But I would say exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
Because when it comes to our cats, we do have to, especially with the stress, there are lots of things that we have to do, and we have to figure out what works exactly for them, not what works for every dog, but what works for that specific cat with that specific personality. We found lots of things that you can do to help the stress. We try to implement probably 80% of it, and sometimes we go to that other 20% if need be, but more proactively. You want to start?
Well, I was going to say, the big one, and I want to give an example of it this morning. Big one is routine for our kitties.
Yes.
Routine is something that is, maybe a lot of us already have it, but we don't necessarily understand the impact that it has on our kitties. For example, our routine with our little ones is usually getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning. Jay will make their breakfast. I will clean their litter. Both of those tasks for 7 litter boxes and a species appropriate diet take about 30 minutes. So by the time they have their breakfast, they get to go use the bathroom, and they have a clean litter box.
Yeah.
And if I'm not done, they will wait in line. Well, this morning, Jay threw her neck out, and I was feeding them, and I wanted to feed them. I fed them first. In hindsight, I should have done it the other way. I fed them first, and by the time they were done and I was going to go clean the litter, Pooh Bear Pooh Bear is our big orange tabby. He walks into the litter box, saw that it was not clean, walked around to the back of it, and was about to go to the bathroom, where he had
On the
done
floor.
2 weeks ago when I changed his litter late. Because that's how important it is, not just for a clean litter box. A clean litter box is so important, and it can be very stressful for a kitty that's used to it. But that routine is really, that really demonstrated this morning, really demonstrated how important it was. And when I realized he was doing that, you could see like the panic. He's like, well, I don't know where to go.
Right.
Nothing's clean. Like, what do I do? So routine, I think, is number one. And that's cleaning the litter boxes, making sure they've got their fresh water, playtime, outside time, supervised outside time,
Feeding times,
snack times, play times, you know.
Yeah.
And we're not saying like down to the exact minute, it always has to be the same, but in a routine schedule, it actually has been proven to help reduce cat stress. So routines are a go-to for us. Exercise it's like the number one best natural way to reduce stress, right?
And it sounds hard with cats.
And it's the same for us that it is for our cats, right? So it's easy to understand, but we don't always think about that. So engaging in playtime with our cats, making sure that they're moving around and getting exercise. It's sometimes hard inside, especially when you have multiple cats, because one cat will be like, I don't want to play with the other cats. You know, we have 4
Someone's
youngins.
photobombing you.
That's Madison.
That's
she's our
Madison.
She's our 7-month-old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, her and her brother are. We've got some pairs here.
We've got some sibling sets.
But they get a lot of exercise on their own. We don't have to do a whole lot for them. But our older cats, we have to kind of engage with them. Outside time is one way by getting them in. We have like this tent catio kind of thing outside. Our big boys are basically trained to stay in a certain area, but when they go outside, they are moving around. They jump up on things. They are stimulated. Their mind stimulated because there's birds everywhere.
Right.
So this is like the kind of exercise that we want to make sure that we're giving our cats on a regular basis to help reduce their stress as well.
Yeah.
What about, I know for dogs, a lot of times people will use feeder bowls, because it makes their feeding take a lot longer to do. So in the wild, we know, right, animals actually have, feeding is a big event in the wild, right? You hunted for it, you brought it back to the family gathered around, you all ate, those kind of things. What can we do to extend our feeding time for our cats? Are there ways that you guys have found that have worked for your cats?
Oh my goodness, yes, and that's such a great question, Carrie, because that is there are actually veterinarians right now that are working on inventing ways to reduce cystitis specifically in cats in shelters. And what they're doing is creating, and you can buy this stuff, or we found plenty of ways to just make it at home yourself without spending too much money. But hiding their food. They're like indoor hunting feeding systems where you put like just a little bit, and our cats love this with their freeze-dried treats in the afternoon. You put just a little bit of food in a small container of some sort where they have to kind of work for it, and then you hide it around the house in little bites. Because their stomachs are only the size of a ping pong ball, so when we're feeding them like this large amount, it's not the way that they would eat in the wild. So if we feed it still on the routine, but if we feed or we hide their food around the house, then they're going through that prey sequence of hunting for it, smelling for it, basically attacking it by playing with it and working for their food. It helps to increase. This is a great way to help increase exercise and decrease stress.
Right.
At the same time. Yeah.
Are you able to do that with a raw diet, or does it have to be the freeze dried? Is there a way to, because I know I have that problem with my dogs. I actually freeze up their little food in little frozen balls and then throw it in my backyard. And then they spend like 2 hours in my backyard hunting. I don't even know where it went. Yeah, I just throw it out there, and then, I know it's frozen and it's probably not the best thing, but I want them to hunt. And they're so funny though, they're lazy. They'll go do it for like 15 minutes, then they'll come to the door. That we found it. I'm like, no, you didn't. And they'll go back. But what about the frozen, or the raw food? How do we do that with our kitties? Is there a way, do you know?
Yeah, so it's a little harder, obviously, with raw food because once they're playing with it, it might get in your carpet, it might get, like on your floors and things like that. So it's easier with, from our experience at least, it is easier with like a freeze dried food.
But I will say this, when it comes to species appropriate, and I think one of the things that's really helpful is recognizing how important that prey sequence is to our kitties.
Right.
They do spend a lot of time sleeping. They spend a lot of time grooming and sleeping. And you notice it goes from, they're out on the hunt. They're stimulated by stuff, that whole stalking thing. When you first let your kitty outside, you see they like hunker down and they're just absorbing everything. And then when they see something that they're going to hunt, they stalk it. They do, they stalk it. And then you've got the chase. And then they, it breaks my heart. And I'm so glad I can't do the whole prey thing.
Yeah, it's hard.
But cats are murderous hunters and they play with their prey, right? That's a big part of their being a cat. And then they eat it. And the little things that they eat that whole thing down, right?
Yeah.
They're grooming, they're sleeping. So I think when it comes to the species appropriate raw stuff, I am not going to be putting that in a little Kong somewhere, and I'm going to forget that it's there and wonder why
the house smells
like a dead body.
Oh.
But you can, and especially towards evening time, understanding that cats are crepuscular, which is my favorite word, most active at dawn and at dusk, which is when their prey is most active.
Yeah.
In the morning time, to have them play, and especially
the wand toy is really great for this.
The wand toy is great for this, or especially for people that are saying, my cat will not let me sleep through the night, or they're stressed out, they have separation anxiety. If I go in my room and they just meow or they're going crazy all night long. Before that evening meal, right at dusk, spend about 15 or 20 minutes playing with them, really engaging, whether it's a laser pointer, whether it's the wand toy is really great, whatever it may be, and then you feed them. And it helps that natural sequence of the stalking and chasing and catching and killing, and then eating, and then they go into their grooming and sleeping part, and it's really a
routine.
Great way to reduce stress and to get them to
reduce stress and to really let them be cats.
And yours too, if your cat's keeping you up at night.
Yeah. Well, mine doesn't. Mine sits in the garage. I can't get her to, she doesn't. I don't know what she's doing at night.
Garage.
I know, it's horrible. Her name was Stella. I named her actual official name, but then it just turned into Garage Kitty because nobody knew I had a cat. And they're like, yeah, I do. She just won't come out of the garage. And then everybody was like, how's your Garage Kitty? And that's how her name became Garage Kitty, but her name is actually Stella. But I was so interested in when you guys talked about routine. And I wanted to point out that in the wild, our animals, whether it be canine, feline, whatever it is, everything is done by the sun and the time. They don't have a clock, so they don't know that it's 6 o'clock in the morning.
Doesn't know the time changed last weekend. Yes,
they don't. They
her
know
6 o'clock scratch at my head for food is now her 5 o'clock scratch at my head for her food.
But they also don't understand that you had a meeting on Friday and you normally don't have a meeting on Friday, and now why is my routine? So just those little tiny changes in their routine could bring stress, because it happens with dogs too, but I see it more with cats. They can't have any routine tweaked at all. Although my dad's dogs are crazy routine dogs. And my dad's the one that stresses out about it. He's 84 years old and he'll be like, I got to get home. It's 4 o'clock. I'm like, what's 4 o'clock? The dogs, they have to eat. And I'm like, you are 84. You should not be driving fast home to feed the dogs. But routine is for our animals, right? It's based on the sun and the time and what time of day it is, because that's what tells them what to do. So we have to be cautious of that, right? Conscious of that, right?
Right. And it also makes switching up their routine or switching up their environment is something that is outrageously stressful for some kitties. Some are some are like, we can do whatever.
Our cats love it.
If you move that, Jay loves to rearrange furniture. She would do it in a month if she could. But some of our cats love it, but you can see it stresses out others. Having company over, we joke about how Madison and Jack, who are 7-month-old kittens,
are COVID babies.
They are COVID kitties. They're not used to, we've been in quarantine, we've been self-isolating. I'm able to work from home. I mean, we really don't go out a lot, and we certainly don't have a lot of company over. If there's anyone, a knock at the door, someone that does come over, they are like, what in the world? It's just incredible, which Jack is a good example of a cat that will start purring like crazy when he's freaking out.
Wow. Yeah.
So it's just interesting to see what from our cat's perspective, what's nuts to them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the purr is definitely interesting because I have had cats dropped off at the cat hotel that I know they're stressed. You just got out of a car, you're coming in a cat carrier, and you just started purring. I don't think I buy this. Like, I
Right.
have to kind of think about that purr may not. But I also am guilty of when I have cats at the cat hotel, when they're very nervous and they won't come out of their little area that I have for them, and then I'm always like, oh, I can't wait till you start purring because that's my sign that you're
That you're
better.
okay,
But that's
yeah.
because they didn't start off purring. So it's always my
Yeah.
goal to get the cat to purr and kind of, try to mark me and, whatever. So that's really awesome. So I know that I love that we're explaining what cystitis is, understanding that blood in the urine, right, is not always a bladder infection. Why is that important to know that cystitis or blood in the urine isn't always a bladder infection?
If I can actually add to that,
Yeah.
because I went straight to antibiotics.
Yeah.
And, from what I've read and I've experienced now is that you go straight to antibiotics and you thank the antibiotic for getting rid of it when in fact it was just going to go away on its own in 5 or so days anyways. So that's been what has been rough for me, is just loving her through it, nurturing her through it and believing that it's just going to go away on its own in 5 days, and it has.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so going straight to thinking that it's some sort of a infection, urinary tract infection, is getting them on antibiotics is
Right,
not good.
right.
So
Do you guys have
Yeah, well,
want to
yeah.
add to that?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's unfortunately that's kind of just how we've been taught, right? I mean, before we got into the nutritional industry, pet nutrition industry, we would have thought the same thing, and a lot of veterinarians would go straight to antibiotics or a steroid, not knowing if there's an infection or not. It's just as a precaution, they'll be like, let's do antibiotics.
It's like a protocol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. I mean, I think that it's going to be a big concern anytime you see blood in the urine, and props for you even noticing. I know a lot of times when our kitties are stressed, one of the signs is that they will eliminate outside the litter box, as Pooh Bear almost did this morning.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's where we catch that blood in the urine, and that's always a reason to be concerned and make sure, eliminate that it's not a bladder infection.
Sorry, your new little kitty is.
Isn't she fabulous?
She's cute.
She's hunting now.
Her brother, Zorro, was over there playing with a bouncy ball, and she's like, I think that's mine.
So for me, it's really hard because I don't want to stress her out more by taking her to the vet and
Yes.
and getting the anti-inflammatory. Because that's pretty much the only solution at this point, is just getting her that anti-inflammatory. So I've been writing it out the last couple of times, but like I said, it stresses me out because of the blood. So, and it is because she's going outside of the box that I'm able to see it. So what am I doing the right? It's hard. I don't know if
I'm going to back you up a little bit because I want to talk about and we're going to get on to that, but so sometimes people don't think antibiotics are bad, but what I want to kind of talk about is what that antibiotic could do to the rest of the body and why it's important that your veterinarian run a culture before giving the antibiotic. In Lisa's case, they gave her the antibiotic and then ran the culture, and then when the culture came back, it was negative for bacteria. The antibiotic will only work if it's bacteria, right? So let's just talk a little bit about the damage that an antibiotic can do to a pet's gut when it's given unnecessarily.
Yeah. So,
such a good
antibiotics are antibacterial, right? So they're made to go into the body and strip the body of bacteria. Each antibiotic is going to be is a bit different, right? And that's why the culture is so important, because if you run a culture and you find out what strain of bacteria we need to kill, then we know which antibiotic to use. And there are very few vets that I've seen in my many years that actually even talk about a culture, right? We have to say, hey, we'd like a culture before we,
I agree with you. They don't. They just do the antibiotics.
No, they'll throw one. If it doesn't work, and you're like, hey, the problem's still here, they'll try a different one. But the problem is that it's stripping all the bacteria, the good and the bad bacteria. So now we have a weakened immune system because 80% of the immune system is in the gut, and that's where that bacteria lies, which unfortunately in a case of feline idiopathic cystitis is causing more nutritional stress. So now we're going to turn around and we're going to without building that back up, we're inadvertently Inadvertently? Is it
Inadvertently.
inadvertently? Yeah, okay.
It's
There you
okay.
go.
We all know what you mean.
Yeah, yeah. We're unfortunately creating more problem in the future. So it's
It's kind of a cyclical thing though as well, because every time we use an antibiotic, and there are times that it's so important to use an antibiotic, but it's so important to know when those times are and to not use them as just part of even a preventative protocol, right? We had a vet that wanted to give our cat an antibiotic because he was constipated. It's like,
we're like, does he have an infection?
Yeah, like
She was
just
like,
to be on the safe side. So, but also understanding that it takes a long time then to rebuild that diverse microbiome that's going to help a very healthy immune system.
The study showed that it can take up to 16 months to rebuild. After one round of antibiotics, it can take up to 16 months to rebuild that gut.
Well, and that's the same for humans as well. I think that's important to know.
No, it's true.
Oh, wow, I didn't know
But
that.
as pet parents, don't you think we need to take on that responsibility? I'm going to defend vets a little bit here when I say that as pet parents, we go in, we pay a lot of money, and we want to leave with something. We want to feel like I was given something,
solution.
right? That there was a solution. And so you have to find the right vet who's willing to say, look, I can't give you the solution right now. I still need to run some tests. I need to do something. But as pet parents, we can't demand antibiotics. We can't demand the instant, I want, this to happen right now, or I'm giving you a bad Yelp review. We have to take responsibility too, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely.
And I think
we just did a podcast on that.
Yeah, I think that's such an important thing for us cat people, especially to acknowledge, is that we really need to feel empowered and confident even in our own questions. Jae is by far way smarter than I'm the pretty one. Jae's the smart one. I mean, I think that's obvious. But when we go to a vet, I mean, she absorbs.
You can't have
like,
both, just so you know. You can only be pretty, and you can only be either pretty or smart. You don't get both.
It's one or the other.
It's the woman's way. But when we go to the vet, she is pulling stuff out of the air that I didn't even remember that we learned at some point, right?
Yeah.
So when I'm there by myself, I now feel far more confident and empowered to ask what I consider to be a really dumb question. And I think that that's what's so important, is that, especially when it comes to a situation like this, you're freaked out. We talk about how our stress impacts our kitty's stress as well. That's it's a scientific physical phenomenon that happens with cortisol. We go in stressed out, and sometimes we forget to ask questions like, oh, I meant to ask, but we're already in a heightened state of something's wrong with my kitty and I need to figure it out. And we're just looking for those answers and taking it down a notch instead and thinking, what are the questions? What about that culture? Is this a good time to run that culture? Could we do this?
Yeah, and I think establishing a relationship, and this a lot of dog parents do now.
Yeah.
But when it comes to cat parents, because like you said, Lisa, it's so stressful to get your cat to the vet. Like, we don't want to stress them out. So taking them in for their annual wellness exams or taking them in for their annual dentals and things like that isn't something that most cat parents tend to do because we don't want to stress them out, right? But it's really important that our cats have that relationship, and that we have that relationship with our vets prior to emergency. So our vets do see our cats. We just took in 5 cats to the vet just for their in one visit.
That was probably fun.
And yeah, it was a trip.
I actually recommend it. I mean, I don't recommend it, but I do recommend it.
Everyone should experience that at least once in their life, right? 5 kitties at the animal hospital at one time. So I love doing podcasts where I'm kind of like problem, cause, solution. So one of the things that Lisa was starting to kind of allude to is, so we know what cystitis is, and we know the reasons why we want to make sure we have cystitis and why we don't have bacteria. Like, hopefully our listeners are understanding the importance of knowing the difference between a bacterial infection and cystitis. Both could have blood in the urine, correct?
Yes.
So I don't want people to think, oh, blood in the urine, no big deal. It's cystitis. No. And I don't want people to think blood in the urine, huge problem, right? No. So they both have the same symptom. So that's the other reason why the culture is so imperative.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So So yeah, let me make clear that we stand 100% behind if you start to see blood in the urine, or your cat is straining to urinate or not urinating. These things are a call for an vet visit immediately,
Go
right?
to the vet.
Absolutely,
You
yeah.
want to,
Yeah.
because some of this, a blockage can be fatal,
Can be
right?
fatal.
So it's very important that we get them to the vet, and then we do get that culture and a urinalysis, just like a full checkup. But now, Lisa, now that you know that this is more on the stress level, and you're like, okay, I know it's going to go away on its own in 4 or 5 days, there are other things that you can do naturally that help to reduce that inflammation, that you can add to the diet that reduces that inflammation. There are things that you can do naturally to help calm her down. So keeping, all of your kitties more calm. There are natural supplements actually that really help to calm cats, so that you don't
Right.
have to resort to the drugs. There's lots of CBD is one. Just always make sure you know your source. But CBD is a good calming formula for cats with cystitis. We have one in our shop. Jackson Galaxy has a ton of flower essences. So there's a lot of natural ways that we can do this. But I always say we don't want to just, even if it's a medication or if it's a natural, we don't want to just do
Give them
that,
something.
right?
Yeah.
Just like give them something and say, okay, they're going to be calm, and so that's fine. All these other things, the routines, the exercise, confidence building sessions is something that we've learned that really helps reduce stress in cats. There's lots of little things that we can do, that we can implement into our home, that can help to proactively prevent the stress.
Right.
I think you think about, I think a lot of us have probably gone through this since the pandemic started, when we're all sitting at home. You start realizing, wow, if you've got more time on your hands, there's a lot more stuff to worry about, right?
Yep.
I think one of the things about our kitties is recognizing that there is such significance to enhancing their environment in a way that stimulates their feline instincts, and their fantastic felineness. Vertical space is a great thing.
Yeah.
Having safe window perches, opening the window so they've got, like you said, garage kitty
I have
sometimes
to
loves
open
to
the garage door.
right? It's something that is very, when Jay was mentioning that a bored kitty is a stress kitty, I think it's important to recognize that is, it's kind of easy to empathize with, as a lot of us have gone through that during the as COVID continues, right? So, but putting in some routine, and then recognizing too, I think that, especially Lisa, you mentioned how stressful it is. Like you're stressed out, your anxiety is high, trying to take care of that situation. And I think the more we know, the better that we do. I think recognizing that that this is what you're dealing with, you can take the edge off a little bit. Yes, you're going to need to protect your belongings to make sure that you don't miss a spot.
Yeah.
Purple, what they call black lights, are great for that. If you're ever worried that you missed a spot,
I have one.
take the black light.
The new house doesn't have any carpet at all, so but I still do have a comforter on my bed,
Well, I think the other thing, so you just mentioned your new house. How long have you been in the new house
Just
with the little?
since the end of August. So
Scent swapping. I know that she's probably been there a long time, but Dr. Marcikoski, again, brilliant, talks a lot about really taking, when you're having a good moment with your kitty, they have those friendly pheromones, which is why they they
mark
rub
themselves.
on you. They're giving you their friendly pheromones. They're marking you as their own, essentially. So if you were to take a clean sock, and especially in places where she might be peeing, it's not marking, but because it could be stress related, right? A lot of times cats will pee outside the box because they need to smell their scent. Once they smell their scent, they're like, okay, I'm more calm, right?
Oh, wow,
So
that's good advice.
and so it's not that they're doing it to be like, this is mine. No, they're doing it to make themselves calm themselves.
Yeah.
To feel a familiar place.
So it is also stress related. So
Right.
so like a clean sock.
Right.
Right. So take a clean sock, put it over your hand, rub those
Friendly pheromones.
the all over the face. Right. That's where their friendly pheromones are. And then it sounds weird, but it works wonders. Take it and go to those spots and rub it down. Rub down.
Wow. So
I am going to tell
steal
all
their
of, I've never
pheromones.
heard that, but I am going to tell every single one of my hotel kitties' parents, because they bring their stuff, which this might sound, sometimes people bring their robes and stuff, and I gotta be honest, like, I don't, like, I gotta go in there and clean, and I don't really want your robe there. I would rather have yeah, exactly. Like, did you wear it? So I guess that's my plug to my hotel. Please stop bringing your robes for your kitties. Instead, can we take a clean sock and rub it all over your kitty and bring the sock? I will be so much happier myself. That will eliminate some of my stress. I've had some of my staff come in and go, what do I do with this lady's robe? And I'm like, I don't know, just leave it in there. Yeah. But the clean sock, that's excellent advice. I love it. I'm going to try
that's
it.
Dr. Marcy Koski, Feline Behavior Solutions. Again, just such an important perspective to look at the why behind a lot of our cats' behaviors.
Yeah.
And recognizing that they're not doing it for a lot of the reasons that people think cats are moody or aloof or
spraying
just
around the house
mean
or
anything like that.
Yeah.
Not at all any of that. And I think that scent swapping thing though could be great, especially if we're in a new territory.
Right.
You know, you're in a new home. Those confidence building sessions where you really just let her start. And confidence building sessions are basically like we were talking about before dinner time at night. It is very engaged, one-on-one. Do you only have Aria in the home right now? Is it just one?
I have a second cat, Luna.
Luna.
Aria and Luna.
And
So it would
she's just a lover, but she is crazy playtime. She loves we call her the play hog. So anytime I try to play with Aria, she comes in and she wants to be the one to play. And
That's why one is so important.
Yes. So in this confidence building session, if you have one cat that just dominates playtime, you want to take what's the cat's name again? Aria. Yeah, we want to take Aria into a room by yourself. So it's just you and Aria.
But then she's worried
Close
about
the door.
Luna. She'll be looking around waiting for her to come. She won't play because she thinks
She wants
Luna's
Luna
going
to
to
be
come
there.
and play, and she doesn't
Well,
want to be without
Luna's
her.
her
She loves
emotional
her.
support
She loves her
cat.
too. Yeah, she wants her to be there, but then she also won't play if I'm one-on-one with her most of
That's
the time too.
interesting.
So
Well,
Yeah.
we're
trying.
but wait.
I would still say, give it a try because we have one that's the same. Won't play around any of the other cats, likes to be around the other cats, but was our most stressed out, high anxiety cat. And he has like an autoimmune disease. So keeping his stress under control is so important because when he gets too stressed out, in fact, one of our friends came over, this was 4 years ago, I think. Yeah. One of our friends came over and he brought his dogs. So we were like, well, they can't be inside the house, but they can be in the backyard. And Pooh Bear saw him through the window, and he has with his autoimmune disease, it's like vascular in nature. So if he gets too stressed out, he will bleed from the mouth. Oh, no. He will bleed from his ears. He will bleed from his eyes.
It is truly horrifying.
It can get really bad. I mean, he starts spewing blood.
But the point, right? Now that we've shocked and awed you with this awful thing. No, the point is this though. He's a very difficult kitty to read, to interact with. He can be very aggressive. He could be. It's been a lot of years, but he's the kitty that even if he looked like he wanted to look at the wand to maybe play for a minute, as soon as there's another cat around, he is no. But he's also one of the most aggressive. So taking him into the bedroom, yes. You may spend with Pooh Bear, it took about 15 to 20 minutes for him to be like, okay, no one else is coming. All right.
What are we doing?
What do we do? Right? Like take it at their own pace. So maybe plan for a good 45 minutes
for the first
where you're just in there and you know that she's being like, why are we in here by ourselves? What's going on? Yeah. Wait for her to calm down.
And talk. I mean, don't just sit there and stare at her. Put your phone aside.
Use the wand toy.
Yeah, 100%.
And it'll be like, what's that?
What's this wand toy? I've never heard. It's wand.
She wants to know what the wand toy is.
So well, I mean, there's tons of wand toys. It's basically it's a wand with like a feather and a string and like a feather or something at the end. The best one.
Oh, just any wand toy.
Well, she's telling you that. Say it again.
So the best one that we have found is Da Bird, D-A Bird.
Da Bird. Okay.
Right?
You can get it on Amazon for like, I think $12
and Rue has a great wand toy as well.
Lots of them.
But important to recognize that to really get our cats engaged, the reason that the bird is so great, and you can switch out the lures at the end or be feathers or be a little mouse, is because it's got a very low profile stick and a very thin,
Like fish line.
almost like a fish line, right? So that what they see is just the lure. So it's moving around like
see the prey.
and they're not seeing this big
Really?
stick
Yeah.
stuff that's scaring them. So, if you wave a stick at them, they're going to be scared.
Yeah.
If it's just like a little feather bouncing around, that's fun.
Yeah.
So you want a very low profile stick with a very not easy to see string attached to the lure, and that's going to be fantastic. So even if Dr. Marcy Koski says if you've got a kitty that says that they don't want to play, they're lying. So we were like, no, I'm sorry, Dr. Koski, you really don't understand. We have tried to play with Pooh Bear for 4 years. He will not play. And she said he's lying. So these confidence building sessions, and it does take time. Even the act of taking into a room by himself is like, what the hell are we doing? What's going on? So you have to take that time to let the edge come off and for him to feel comfortable. In your case, for Ari to be like, okay, Luna's not coming. What's going on? And then you can bring out the toy, and it's going to be like, oh, what's this? And it's incredible. One session with Pooh Bear, one session with him was like night and day. He went from being aggressive to being like, hey, what's up? Because they feel confident.
Right.
There is
right.
this they feel like they can hunt and catch and that no one is getting in their space. And then even when it comes to other kitties, other situations, it's our COVID kitties, as we call them. If we've got someone at the door, they freak out. They're just like flying, trying to get somewhere under anything. Pooh Bear is like, what's up? I'm just going to sprawl right here in front of where you're trying to walk. Cool.
That's awesome.
So, but it takes effort in kind of looking at it from their perspective. So I would try again with her.
Okay. I'm gonna try some stuff with Garage Kitty that I haven't tried. I've tried a lot of stuff, but I'm gonna try rubbing a sock on her face and bringing it in the house. I'm gonna see if that works. Hadn't thought about that. As I'm gonna
and Dr.
try.
Costa said, bring it in and rub it at about 12, wherever they would rub their face.
Yeah.
So about 12 inches up on all the corners in your house, door frames, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Any place that they would rub, if they come in and they're like, oh my God, I'm here.
Yeah.
It's a
I belong here.
I'm gonna
belong here. It's
videotape Garage Kitties, so hopefully people can watch. Because I'm gonna take this stuff to heart, and I'm gonna take her in the house, which I have a video of right now of me bringing her in the house and her screaming bloody murder to get back to the garage, clawing at my garage door to get back in. And so anytime I bring her in, she does that. So I'm gonna start with that video, and then I'm gonna do these confidence building things and see if I can fix it. I just don't know what her. So it'll be fun to watch. But so let's talk a little bit about. So now we know cystitis, blood, what we're gonna do about it if we have blood. One of the things I wanted to bring up is I use a cat litter. I don't know. Have you guys heard of Pretty Litter? Pretty Litter.
Yes.
So I've been using it at the cat hotel for a while, and I got to say I really love it because it's so white in color that I can see blood in there. And sometimes we have kitties that stay with us for weeks at a time. So I really have to be able to. They're not just there for the weekend. I need to be able to see if something changes in that time. But it also regulates the pHs. It tells you the pH color. So have you guys used that litter, or you know anything about it? And this is not a plug. I don't have any game in this. They don't even sell it. I can't even sell it. It's not. I'm not trying to sell it.
Right. We've definitely heard about it. I think it's a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Really when it comes to your cats at home, at least I think in the cat hotel situation, that's perfect. When it comes to your cats at home, it really is a safe litter, right? So you want to know that you want it dust free, scent free. You want to make sure that whatever, because our cats absorb another thing about using chemical household cleaners or household fragrances is that our cats absorb directly through their paw pads. So whatever it is, we're not a fan of clay litter.
Very vascular, so if
it has chemicals in it, things like that, we want to stay away from. But there's a ton of really great litters out there, really like natural litters. But you have to find what your cat uses, like
for
what your
thing,
cat likes.
I feel like, and we've kind of looked into it. We're not quite sure on the chemicals and the sourcing of it, so we've not used it ourselves. I think that when you're dealing with a situation where it's going to be critical that you especially when it comes to like urinary tract infections, maybe we've got one that's very prone. or their pH is always like running at 8 or 8.5, and
Right.
you want to keep an eye on that to catch something before it turns into a big problem. I could see where that would be maybe even maybe in a compromise that I would make. Just I'm not comfortable with what may be in the litter,
Right,
and you
right.
To
know,
make those colors, and
Right.
and when we spoke with them, they wouldn't give us that information.
They
They said it
wouldn't?
was
well, and
proprietary.
it's proprietary,
Yeah,
and that's
which
and that
understandable.
makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that you would have a ton of litter companies going out and being like, "Look, ours does
We can
this
do it too. Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that it's something that can be hugely helpful, and I definitely, you know, I commend them for the idea and for that
Yeah.
whole concept. I think it can actually be life saving in some
Yeah.
situations.
Yeah.
Not a litter that we used, but certainly one in certain situations. I think is
I've been wanting to use just dirt.
Yeah.
I literally, I started this whole thing where I'm like, I'm just going to use dirt. Like that's what I'm going to use. And it's going to be good soil from a good place. So we did it for about a week. And then the cat
Dirt
hotel was
everywhere.
filthy. Like there was mud on the walls that they stepped on.
Oh,
and I'm
gosh.
like,
Yeah.
so I'm still seeking that possibility because I love the idea of them just digging in dirt and then getting that through their paws and then licking the dirt, and then that helps the microbiome and all of that. But it hasn't worked for me. But if it works for you at home, that would be my huge recommendation. But what cat litter do you guys use?
We actually use pine pellets.
Pine
So
pellets.
so we I mean, we've been through
We've been through a lot.
Yeah.
And and that's not without, you know, pine pellets is very natural, but it's not without certain controversy of its own, right?
Right.
I
yeah,
mean,
scooping is like the opposite of how you'd normally scoop litter.
Well, and a lot of-
it takes a lot longer.
a lot of
And you have to
cat-
change it
well,
very often. So
Yeah.
when you told me to try different cat litters when we first started having the trouble with Aria and her
Yeah.
urinary, we went to yesterday's news.
Yesterday's news. Yeah.
So do you guys like the pine pellets better than? Have you ever tried the yesterday's news? It's
No.
It's the
newspaper.
newspaper?
Yeah,
It's newspaper.
but they're pellets. They
Yeah.
are pellets
Yes.
still.
But it's just
Yes.
newspaper because we were trying to figure out, like, are we, you have to think of all these things, right? Your cat's urinating down into a litter box if it's got those chemicals getting back up into the urethra, and then you end up with these bladder infections. So it was just this process, like upper respiratory infections in kitties is another one. Like, well, yeah, he's in there digging in this smoke, like, you know.
Right.
So I
Right.
told her, let's try yesterday's news because it doesn't have anything in it. And so, but none of it worked. But that's what we're talking about, is eliminating everything before we go to antibiotics and going to anxiety pills, which is going to lead me
Trying
into
things.
the next thing I want to talk about. So we know what cystitis is. We know what we're going to do about it. We're going to go to the vet. We're going to be proactive. We're going to say, no, you're not giving me antibiotics until we find out if my cat has a bladder infection, and then we're going to make sure it's the right one. Once we've done all of that, we've taken away the stress, we've done all of that. Now, I know you guys had mentioned CBD, but I know you guys make a fabulous line, and I know you don't want to be salesy, and I get that, and I appreciate that. But you do carry a product that I support, and I want you guys to talk about it. So what products do you guys recommend? And you can recommend other people's products as well, but if there's something that you really, really think will help a cat with cystitis, can you guys talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and this is funny because when we first started, like 4 years ago, I think, when we first started selling this product, it's called Cat Calm, and it's
Super original.
it's very original. It's made of 80 different herbs, 21 minerals, and seven plant extracts. So it's completely natural. No side effects. It's also not a sedative. So it's not something that like many of these chemical medications, they're gonna make your cat into a different they just have a different personality. So about 4 years ago, one of our customers came to me and she was like, my vet can't figure this out. They're the same situation as with Aria, right? My vet can't figure this out. My cat just keeps having urinary issues, keep going to the vet. There's no, urinary tract infection. We don't know what it is and why this keeps happening. And I had just done a study on, or was reading studies on feline idiopathic cystitis. And I was like, have you heard about this? And have you thought about this? And she was like, let me talk to my vet. She went back to her vet and came back. She was like, my vet said you were spot on. That's got to be what this is. So what can we use? And I was like, well, then, we don't need to be using all these urinary things as much as we need to be using a calming formula. So she started using Cat Calm, and she just mixes it in a little bit of, in the food. She's a raw feeder as well. mixing the drops into a little bit of water mixed in with the food. Water activates many of the herbs, so it needs a little bit of water in there. And 4 years later, no more issues.
cystitis.
Yeah, no more
That's amazing.
cystitis.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So some herbs that help. What about natural herbs in the house, like just having plants and natural herbs around for your cats to chew on if they want to? Have you found that to be helpful at all?
I think it would be environmentally enhancing to have.
Yeah, I think having like things like wheatgrass, right, growing around the house. I think it's
Especially
definitely
maybe sitting on some vertical space where they're like, oh,
Right.
it's time to.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. Wheatgrass is super helpful. I don't know. I haven't read any studies on how it helps to reduce stress, but common sense would tell me that it would, because anything that we're able to give, just like the vertical space, we give them vertical space inside because outside they'll be climbing trees, right?
Right.
So
And
inside,
it's comforting for them to
To
be
be-
able to survey their
Right.
their territory.
right, and
Yeah.
outside they be eating grass, and so if we give that to them inside, these are ways that we can help mirror their the environment they were made to be in.
I would say too, though, that Jackson Galaxy has a line of flower essences, which are all natural as well. And there's a few, like I'm trying to think of the name of a few of them.
Bully.
bully, but no, they have one that's like specifically for calming as well. I think it's important to recognize, and something that I really encourage cat parents. I think a lot of us get cats that we're like, oh, because they're convenience companions. It's not like I have to go walk them every day or whatever it may be. And then when you find yourself in a situation like this, it's like, okay, I'm going to look at litter. I'm going to switch up different kinds of litter. That's going to take a while. I'm going to look at the diet. That's going to be a little more expensive. I got to try to find which natural product is going to be the most effective. That's going to take some time. Or I could just throw them at a steroid and be like, 7 years isn't a bad lifespan. They had a good life. I think there's people that vacillate between the mentality. I mean, I've literally heard it. I don't want to make the effort. So I'm very excited that you're someone who's open to trying these things. And I feel like it's something that is a huge service. I think for our experience, I think our cats make us better people, or at least make us want to try to be better people.
Yeah.
So looking at things like, my point in all of that is saying, when we're looking at natural
talking a lot.
products, I'm sorry, when we're looking at natural products, you want to find one that's going to be the best fit. And sometimes that means trying different ones. So, but there are so many great natural options out there.
Yeah.
Is there such thing as doing too much? If I have the cat calm and then also have the wheatgrass and also have some other kind of grass or herbs or flowers or whatever, whatever I put on, is there such thing as overdoing?
It's a great question.
No, that
When
is
it
a
comes
good
to
question, but
supplements, or when it comes
When
to
it comes to
that's something-
supplement herbal.
using
Every
all the
time.
okay. I was going to say no. I mean, we implement several things, like several of these things into our household on a regular basis to be proactive. But as far as supplements, I think there's always, there's
You don't
too
want
much
to
of
throw the kitchen sink and then be like, oh, something's working. I'm just going to have to keep giving them all because I don't know what's working.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's also going to hurt your pocketbook. If we'll tell people that call us and we'll just be like, maybe start with just one product and see if that works. And then if it doesn't, maybe we can add in another product, but we don't want to, just like do everything at once, because then you don't know what is exactly,
Right.
helping the most.
And I think it's when we find ourselves in a situation where we realize there's something that we need to fix, and then you start researching, you're like, oh, this sounds like it'd be good for this and this and this and this, and then you just want to get it all, right? Like you want to take the whole shelf of stuff that's going to help that. I think, Dr. Kieran Becker and Rodney Habib have a good way of saying, like, when it comes to supplementation, we want to know why we're supplementing.
Yeah.
And I think that it's so important to never throw a bunch of things at once. You want to make sure that you try things, and if the
you've
first
said
one you
that
try
before.
is
Yeah.
making a big impact,
Keep doing that.
Then that's the one, right? So you don't want to try like 2 or 3 different products because this could be good and this was good, because you're not going to know what's working.
That being said, many sorry, sidetrack.
It's
Squirrel.
the neck brace,
My
sorry.
sister just walked in with the neck brace on, and to make me laugh. Anyway, that being said, some cat, like every cat is different, right? So one product may work for one cat, but doesn't work for the other cat. One product may work for this cat kind of, but he needs a little bit more. So, there are some cases of like feline hyperesthesia, for instance, which is also another idiopathic issue that a lot of cats deal with, which is more of like the over grooming and chasing their tails and things like that. But some are like, I've tried every natural thing possible. My cat has to be on Prozac, or my cat has to be on gabapentin. Like, it's always like some kind of medication. And then others that are like at that point too, but if they use, a flower essence or a product like ours, an herbal product, and in conjunction with a CBD, it takes care of the problem and they don't have to deal with the side effects.
Right. I think too, I've noticed like when you're talking about supplements, right? And we give that to them, that's not their choice to take it. So we're giving it to them. So we have to be responsible in that of how much we're giving them and paying attention to the reactions of them, which is why it's so important that we start off with one product, which is also why it's so important that you work with the right people. You can end up, and I've seen them, you end up in these little retail stores and they want to sell you everything because that's why they're in it. They're in it to sell. They're not in it to help. I don't want to say cure, but help. But that's one of the reasons why I like natural herbs, because I'm a believer that animals instinctively know what their bodies need. And so when we provide it as an instinct, as a plant in the house that they're allowed to chew on, if they feel they need it, then they'll grab it. That's different than us putting the supplement in their mouth. So I like to have herbs around and stuff.
So then if I find something that really works for Aria, is there any harm, assuming that I'm using the herbal type solutions, is there any harm in keeping her on that forever, or do I need to start then watching the length of time that I keep her on one and try another one, or that?
Well, no. So I always say, like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So you can. The cool thing is that if you're using a product that doesn't have side effects, then using it long term doesn't hurt. However, that being said, when it comes to herbal medicine, oftentimes after a prolonged period of time, our cats can become kind of desensitized to it, right? Their body is used to getting the same thing, so it kind of loses effect. And at that point, we might want to switch to another product and then come back to that product. Like find another product that helps in the interim, or rotate between two products so that the body it isn't desensitized to it.
Yeah. I sometimes tell my clients to use things in conjunction together. So if I'm using a CBD oil with a nervous dog, but I also know that this nervous dog is bored, I will tell them we're going to try the CBD until we can change his routine and get him on one. And then we're going to remove the CBD just to get him through it. Like I do that when I'm detoxing animals too. Like we'll use the CBD while we're changing the diet, while we're doing these other things, because those are the healthier, better options and the cheaper options. And then we'll remove the CBD or whatever we're using. And if it doesn't work, then we go back to it. But at least we should always be trying to get them in the best state of health without us needing to intervene. That's how I feel about health. Like without us being able to really intervene with herbs and stuff like that, they should be in the best state of health. So while I totally agree with you guys though, like, they can.
I will say, just as a personal experience with our Pooh Bear, who was very territorial about 4 years ago, we started him on the Cat Calm, and it made a huge difference within about a week. I think the other thing to recognize with natural stuff is it's not 20 minutes later after you give it to him, you're feeling great, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes takes a little while for it to get into the system. And the way that we do it with Pooh Bear now, and I think that it helps, like what you were saying about doing it to get through something, we played with the dosage. So he's a bigger kitty too. So we basically tripled the dosage, and it being natural, it's not going to hurt him. And then you go to where you find the most effective dose, right?
Right.
And with him, we played with taking him off of it completely. And now he's in a place where when it's time to go to the vet, we start giving it to him at least 24 hours ahead of time, sometimes 2 or 3 days ahead of time, so that it's really in there and working and doing its thing.
Yeah, if we know that there's going to be any kind of stressful event coming up. So we don't give it to him on a daily basis. And we do this for all of our cats, but if we know that there's anything that's going to be stressful for them coming up, then we start giving them, this as a preparation or proactively to help them deal with whatever that thing is. It's going to be,
That's
stressful.
amazing. This has been such an amazing I can't even tell you how much I love podcasting because I get to meet people like you, and I'm bringing on these guest co-hosts. This is the first season we've done it like this, and it's my new favorite way to do it. I'm never going back. I love having people come on that can kind of bring those, and finding you guys. I have learned so much, like even myself, because cats, it's hard to reach out to people. So I can't tell you guys enough how much I appreciate you guys coming on, especially I know that Jae, you hurt your neck this morning. I want our listeners to know how passionate these two are, and Jae particularly, she injured her neck really bad this morning, and almost we had to cancel this whole thing, but they were so sweet to come on here. And what is it that you said? What did she say, Andrea?
She said as she was trying to get ready, she was like, a cat lady's got to do what a cat lady's got to do.
And I just love it because it speaks volumes, right? I can see in your eyes that you're in pain, and for you guys to have done so much for this industry and for these cats is just it more than you probably know. Being able to change the idea that a crazy cat person is a crazy person into just understanding, and then bringing enlightenment to the health of our cats is so necessary. It's awesome that you guys are doing this. And so I would just want to thank you guys so much for being here and hopefully helping Lisa and a lot of our listeners. But I'm going to just really quick, do you guys have one final thought, like that's something that you just say to people that is just simple and easy and for them to kind of hold on to after this show?
Okay, so if we're talking about stress specifically, then I always say, I know you touched on it, but make sure that you as a cat parent, you're keeping your stress in check. That's one of the biggest things that I see with really like high anxiety people tend to have more sickly cats. And it's just from my experience, but there's studies that have been done that prove scientific studies that prove that our cats carry our stress. So we excrete a hormone called cortisol whenever we're stressed out, and our cats can smell that from a mile away, and they carry that stress. So I would say let's make sure that we're keeping our stress in check as well.
Awesome. That's a good point. Awesome. That's a good point. Do you guys do consultations for people at all?
Yeah, we give, we are here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
So how do people get a hold of you if they want to get a hold of you?
Okay, yeah, so you can go to our website at twocrazycatladies.com, TWO, crazycatladies.com.
I'm sorry. That will be in our show notes if I interrupted that with my laughter. That was awesome. You can also find us on Facebook or Instagram, the Two Crazy Cat Ladies. You can give us a call. You can text us at 702-466-1150. That's 702-466-1150. We basically stay as available as possible, and we don't charge for consultations. We give free consultations and
reach out anytime.
Yeah. Oh, be careful what you ask for with me.
That's amazing. Lisa, did you have any final questions or anything that you wanted to ask them?
No, I think they covered it well. Yeah.
You guys covered this.
Thank you so much for your time.
Let's keep in touch.
Yeah, keep in touch.
Head boops to Ari and Luna.
Thank you. We will. Thank you guys so much for being here. It's been amazing. To our listeners, I hope that you are just as amazed as I am with these two ladies, and I want to thank Lisa so much for coming out and helping us learn. I hope you've learned something. Please subscribe to our podcast, the Spawdcast. We are always looking out for not only our experts, but also guest hosts. So if you ever want to come on as a guest co-host, that always helps us so that we can get more information out there. All of the information in order to get a hold of the Two Crazy Cat Ladies will be on our show notes, so you can get their phone number and anything you need to get a hold of them anytime you want. So we'll also be airing this on our YouTube channel, so make sure you subscribe to YouTube, the Spawdcast, and we will see you guys later. Thanks. Bye, everyone.